A very good morning to you and welcome back to Business AM, your morning breakfast show that brings you up to speed on what's trending on the business front. And this is Metropole TV, a first in Africa premier business channel that brings you up to speed on business matters. Where to invest? Talk to us on our SMS line 20146. We tell you exactly who are the investors, how do you invest on our various programming, and talk to us at Metropole TV at Metropole TV KE across our social media platforms. Now, let's have a look at the economic review. Let's analyze what has been trending on the business scene. And now the mass layoffs in the hotel industry could take a break in the coming months following 2 billion shillings support from the government announced on Monday. During his Madaraka Day speech, President Uhuru Kenyatta said his administration will refocus its intervention by offering 2 billion Kenyan shillings support to hotels and related establishments to ensure they maintain staff. Due to coronavirus-related distress, the tourism sector, has suffered some of the most severe shocks brought about by restricted movement, termination of international flights, and introduction of social distancing protocols. The president said, and I quote, "I previously announced the 8-point economic stimulus program, additionally sending 53.7 billion shillings to the household. As part of this program, tourism is a key area of response. To jumpstart this important sector and to protect its players from heavy financial losses, my administration will refocus our intervention by offering an initial 2 billion shillings exchequer support to ensure hotels and related establishments maintain their staff complement." Now, last week we saw Serena send staff home on unpaid leave, the Norfolk Hotel closing down. But how will 2 billion shillings revive this sector? Now, joining me is Mr. Odhiambo Ramogi, CEO Elim Capital via Skype. Mr. Odhiambo Ramogi, good morning.
Good morning, Tabitha. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Okay, now let's look at these 2 billion Kenya shillings that the president said will be, or rather has been put aside for the hospitality sector, for the tourism sector. Now, how will 2 billion Kenya shillings revive this sector?
Well, the plan is to retain staff. I was doing the math when I heard you talking about 2 billion. And wondering, so the average salary for hotel staff would be 30,000. Assuming a hotel has around 100 members of staff, that's around 3 million per hotel in terms of their wage bill. We're looking at over 200 hotels at the coast in Nairobi, the Masai Mara, Nanyuki, Naivasha, across the tourism belt in the country. That gives you a wage bill of around 600 million per month for the hotels alone, leave alone the supporting businesses around the hotels. And so what the president is offering can only last for 3 months, maybe, and that is based on the assumptions that we've made. It's a little on the lower side, considering the fact that this might go for a longer period of time. And on the other side, it's also not considerate of some of the bills that these hotels have to take care of, and that because that would mean that they're only paying for the wages. And so, yes, it's a great plan, it's a great initiative. However, in terms of numbers, it fails to meet the target that the hotels have. It fails to meet their needs. But I wish that perhaps then what the president is offering could be just a seed, and then some of the parastatals in his government, some of the donor agencies can add to that figure and probably push it up to at least 8 billion. Then we'll be having a good conversation.
Okay, good. So now looking at Serena and the Norfolk, let's look at the case of the Norfolk hotel. Closing down, how wise was it? Maybe they could probably have come up with a better plan to maybe sustain themselves, keep them afloat, keep them running. What do you think? Maybe they could probably have come up with a better plan to keep going.
Well, certainly, those it's called the what if analysis, post decisions, managerial decisions. But you know, you and I do not have all the information that they had, all the data that they had making this decision. And people take advantage of crises like this to reinvent themselves, to change their business models. It's possible that this is just beyond Corona. This has been going on for a while. They have been wondering, is this a business model that we want to keep doing? And so they are taking advantage of the season to just reshape themselves. That is a possibility. It is also a possibility that this is purely driven by the coronavirus, in which case then this support from the president has come a little bit too late in the day. And so I wouldn't really chastise them for the decisions that they have made, because business is tough, and it's tougher during a crisis like this. Perhaps they had more information than we have.
Okay, great. Very well deciphered. Now, I'd like us to move on to the next point, which is the no cash beyond June for this SMEs. Now, let's go through the readers. Now, the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, has warned that 3/4 of small and medium-sized enterprises have no cash to run beyond June. This dire situation implies that these SMEs will not be able to pay their workers or even obtain fresh supplies, leaving them with no option but to shut down. Dr. Patrick Njoroge, Governor, Central Bank of Kenya, says, quote, "Most SMEs do not have credit buffers, and our surveys show that 3/4 of these businesses are already on the rocks and will soon die quickly. Unless a credit guarantee scheme is put in place, things will only get worse for these businesses." In a virtual media conference held after the CBK's Monetary Policy Committee meeting on 27th of May 2020, the governor cited that support for this critical sector of the economy does not only mean throwing money to these small businesses, but also policy interventions should go beyond finance to boost demand for products and services from these businesses and also provide other forms of support. He said the government's recent economic stimulus plan has high chances of success because it targets medium and small-scale business enterprises, which is the backbone of Kenya's economy. Yes. No, that's it. It's fine. The SMEs are the strongholds of our economy, and with the projection that they will be running out of cash beyond June, is government's funding enough to keep them up and running till the economy goes slightly back to normal?
Well, first of all, you do know that the SMEs might not be contributing to the larger segment of because our corporates provide around 70% of the GDP in the country. However, they are the key drivers of growth. The corporate segments do not grow as fast as the SMEs do. And so if there's any growth that we're expecting in the economy as a country, it will come from the SME sector. Now, because of the fact that a lot of government revenue come from the corporate sector, the government has most of the time focused on that segment. But as the CBK governor is saying, if the economic stimulus package can target the SME segment, then we'll be looking at least salvaging this part of the economy that is more robust and dynamic and leads to growth. So far, there is no policy direction that I can say is really supportive of the SMEs. What I have seen county governments do is waive levies and fees for the small and micro enterprises that operate in the markets within their counties. But beyond that, we've not seen any adjustments that would make SMEs to really grow. If you look at the finance bill, it still maintains the turnover tax. It still maintains the minimum tax. There's also a new tax, the digital gains tax that has been introduced. And so it's I agree with the CBK governor. We need much more than just money. It needs to be policy-driven initiatives that go beyond just financing the SMEs.
And looking at these policy-driven policies that maybe should have in place, what do you think could be some of them, and how do we put them in place, into action?
Well, I mean, the bigger portion of it is marketing. We have complained many times about the import policy of the country. We import almost everything, really disempowering the local producers, the local manufacturers. Again, you see the world is going more protective, towards a more protective approach. And so if we can, first of all, make adjustments on our custom policies to ensure that the goods that come in are either more taxed than the local ones to protect the local industries, that would help. More and more, it needs also to focus on markets. You realize that the curfew we have restricts businesses to between 8 a.m. to somewhere around 4 p.m. because people need to go home early before the curfew. And so that restricts your marketing hours, but that also restricts your market significantly. And so there is need for us to relook into the curfew hours. There's need for us to look into the market, buy locally, increase the buying capacity of Kenyans, and extend that. And the third one would be the fiscal policies that helps in maintaining their finances by reducing the tax burdens. The tax policies that are around small businesses are not meant to encourage the small businesses to continue. And so the fiscal policies that we need to put in place might include removal of the turnover tax, elimination of this digital tax that has come up and makes absolutely no sense economically.
And talking matters tax, and now looking at, we are in June, the budget will be coming out soon. What projections could we maybe state that maybe we can expect from the government generally for our economy?
Well, the Minister of Finance will be very keen on ensuring that he raises revenue for government. Right now, that revenue might not be coming forth because small businesses are affected. Some corporates like KQ, of course, are significantly affected, and even the hotels are affected. And so their revenue streams have really decreased. That would mean, therefore, that they would want to expand their tax band to ensure that they get as much as possible to run government for the next 1 year and to meet some of the needs of fighting the corona crisis. And we have seen that they are going for some of the pension money, they are going for housing money, they are going for the digital tax that I mentioned, and they're increasing they're eliminating some reliefs from individuals just to increase their revenue. I foresee that some of it will pass through Parliament, some of it may not be feasible to pass through Parliament because they were proposed in the tax amendment bill of 2020 and they were turned down by Parliament. The same might still happen in the next few weeks as we see the budget being tabled in Parliament.
Okay, and now looking at away from maybe depending or relying on the government, let's look at the IMF. You have borrowed more than enough, but other investors, how do we get them on board? How do we incorporate them to keep our economy up and running?
Well, first of all, yes, we have borrowed, and that affects our currency significantly. The beauty of a weak currency is investors do not shy away from a weak currency. They tend to shy away from a stronger currency because then their money becomes smaller in that economy. Um, Now, where we are, speaking practically, it might be difficult to attract investors into the country because globally, investors are adopting a wait and see attitude. They are looking at how governments, how countries handle the crisis. And then now, when the dust is cleared, that's when they'll identify where do I take my money. Um, but at the moment, most investors are holding back and looking at how it goes. But of course, the traditional problems that we have make investors shy. The high costs of doing business, the high costs of energy, corruption, that make it difficult for them to invest locally. If we can adjust on these things, then we will receive some very good investments. Because right now we are losing investments to Ethiopia and Egypt because of low costs of energy. Ethiopia is very stern on corruption, so government corruption is not so pronounced. They have a better infrastructure in place. These small things difference when investors have to make a decision on where to invest.
Okay, great. And that's quite a huge impact from the pandemic that we are facing as an economy. And now moving on to another point, the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has backed plans by the president to reopen the economy, saying the move will ease members' cash flow problems. The lobby's president, Richard Ngatia, said plans were underway to ensure employees are provided with protective gear such as face masks and hand sanitizers as the economy reopens. Ngatia was quoted saying, "If a total lifting of the curfew and ban on movement is not tenable, we passionately appeal to His Excellency to extend the curfew hours from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. The National Chamber president also urged traders to embrace aggregator business model through ferrying of goods to complement cargo transporters to limit people movement." He added further that these will not only supplement government efforts to contain the virus from spreading, but also safeguard resuscitation of the general economy without opening the virus floodgates, triggering floodgates and triggering a spike. Now, the president has already hinted at a possibility of relaxing measures to curb the virus in order to reopen the economy. Williams or Mr. Odhiambo Ramogi, what will this mean to what will this mean to the fight against COVID-19? Won't this move or put our lives at risk, reopening the economy?
Um, well, possibly, but Kenyans are already back in business. If you operate within Nairobi, you will see that the roads are full of traffic. We are back to the days of traffic jams. We are back to the days of queuing in banking halls. Because at some point it became unmanageable, untenable to just lock yourself at home and hope that everything will be okay. And so, because of this, I think the Kenya Chamber is wondering what is the purpose of the curfew as it is, considering the fact that we are already mingling, we are going to the banking halls, we are doing business as it was. The only difference is the time of doing reduced significantly, making the economy to be, so to speak, a 6-hour economy. And that is what is pushing or driving their push for an extension of the curfew. Well, fine. If we can manage to maintain a closure of the social establishments like bars and nightclubs, and still do business until 5, and then people can go home now between 7, and have a curfew 8 p.m. Really, that could be more practical as opposed to a curfew of 7 p.m. or earlier. And so their proposal could work. Their proposal is loaded with urgency, with the reality on the ground, with the facts as they are, and I support the move. But the president himself has noted that his curfew is doing more harm than good, and has proposed that he's reopening the economy. The challenge, on the other hand, if I can just mention that, is that the corona infection numbers are going up, and that is worrying, because when we closed down the country, as it were, the numbers were very low. You had 2, 3, maybe 10, 9. Now we are talking of 100, 50. Those numbers are very high, and they are beyond Nairobi. And so, how to balance between just making sure that these numbers do not just shoot up exponentially, and at the same time make sure that the economy is working, is the key question for the government to ask itself.
Now, let's look at probabilities of Ngatia being had by the president. How will the 10 p.m. start time for curfew be effective for the economy, as well as the fight against COVID-19, just in case Ngatia is had?
It will be effective for the economy. The protection of the population against corona, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Look, our neighbors, the Tanzanians, threw all caution to the wind, made sure that the economy is running. Naturally, of course, their deaths are more. I'm wondering whether it's a case of because they threw, or because their medical facilities are not as advanced or as supportive. That is a different case altogether. But the economy is running. It's not like people are dying there more than they are dying in Kenya. And so we need to ask ourselves whether we are willing to sacrifice everything on account of corruption, that the government needs to ask itself. As for whether the curfew of 10 p.m. would work for the economy, certainly, because it would mean that we can close businesses at 7 and still make it home in time, or close businesses even at 8 and still make it home in time before the police start harassing people. So yeah, I will heed his calls.
Great. So maybe your personal opinion on June 6th reopening the economy, or maybe probably that is what we all expect, the economy to be reopened. Just your own personal opinion. What do you think should maybe happen or take place just in case the economy is reopened?
Well, of course, we need to reopen the economy, and challenges right now that we are facing to what we call the economy or the business environment is, 1, the curfew, and 2, the lockdown, that we cannot travel out of Nairobi or to Nairobi and Mombasa and some other counties. That needs to be challenged, because notwithstanding the lockdown, the virus is spreading, and we need to open the economy. I think that's what I can say, and I hope that the president will heed that and will do the needful on the 6th. We will be all very supportive as we see how that goes.
Okay, thank you so very much, Mr. Odhiambo Ramogi, CULM Capital. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tabitha. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you'd like to get a glimpse or go through what we have discussed with Alfiambo Ramogi from the time we started up to now, you can get that from our YouTube link. Go to that time we started up to now, you can still get that recording because we are live across our social media platforms at Metropole TV KE and me at Tabitha Muthoni on Twitter. And our SMS line is 20146. If you'd like maybe if you have an insight on any of our programming, rather, do let us know on our SMS line 20146. That's it for the economic review. Now we take a very short commercial break, but when we do come back, we take a look at sector trends, what's happening in various or other scenes or other business scenes in the country. That's it for now. Stay tuned.